Hello again, this is Frantz Kantor, cartoonist, illustrator, and toon talker. And I'm here and I'm going to do another illustration, another caricature, actually. Sort of move my coffee out of the way of the light. I'll just explain very quickly who we're going to draw. Got some more paint pens here just to play with. I'm going to draw this guy. This is Forrest J Ackerman. And Forrest J Ackerman, to those who don't know, is the father of, or is the editor and main contributor for a lot of magazines, but principally the famous Monsters of Filmland, which I absolutely adored when I was a teenager. And I loved... my first love in films is always going to be horror films. And he loved horror films, and, you know, he was a very influential figure in the horror film genre, or the horror film lovers of horror films. He was a very influential figure in the horror film genre. And often consulted for television and film companies, principally the Munsters. So he had a wide knowledge of film, dating back from the early experimental cinema, silent movie days to right up to the splatterfest of the 80s and 90s. He passed away in 2008, so he was a great energy in the monster film genre. Now, monster films or horror films are something that is obviously it's like the area that kids really respond to. It's their genre, right? To be scared, it's fantastic. And I love it because of the inventiveness and the creativity and the stories and the characters. Like Dracula and Van Helsing and the creature created by, Frankenstein, Dr. Frankenstein. All of these things, a werewolf, they all have like incredible backstories and legends and, all this lore, the vampire lore, the lore of killing, how to track and kill a werewolf, how to protect yourself against vampires, and all of this sort of stuff where we kind of take for granted because it's part of popular culture. He wasn't responsible for a lot of that, but in a way he was, because he kept that popular culture candlelight vigil alive, right, throughout the gritty 60s and 70s when cinema was all about the realism and stuff like that, like the French Connection, that sort of style, Serpico, all of that stuff. So horror is obviously not noted for being gritty and realistic, Texas Chainsaw Massacre notwithstanding. It's not really known for being that because it's delving into the realm of the bumps in the night, the spooks, the nocturnal, the supernatural, the imaginative, it shares many respects the stage with science fiction, and a lot of it, like Frankenstein, for example, uses science as a mad scientist. Dr. Frankenstein creates a creature. So it's a very interesting genre, and kids really, it's a powerful genre for kids, especially teenage boys, I guess, but not exclusively. And I really loved it. And this man epitomized this whole genre for me. So if it was worthy of seeing as a film, it would be featured in famous Monsters of Filmland. And if it could be, it would be featured on the cover of famous Monsters of Filmland itself, And these were like Basil Gogos, among many illustrators, used to do beautiful colored, beautiful paintings of the Frankenstein monster and Dr. Phibes and, Bela Lugosi and all the famous monsters, Christopher Lee, you name it, new monsters, old monsters, science fiction monsters, horror monsters, they'd all be featured on the cover in a beautiful painting. So no photographs or no stinking photos here. Only the stinking photos inside. You want the black and white photographs inside, the magazine. This was published by Warren Publications, who used to do Eerie and Vampirella and creepy magazines. They were comics. Comics were black and white. The covers were color, and that was the thing. People that's what you expected. The covers, it was beautiful pin-ups on the back page as well. Using these paintings. So it was like for me as an artist, as a budding illustrator, I was so fascinated by monsters, and the fact that you get these illustrators who paint monsters so excited me. Was right into Warren Publications, Warren magazines. I got every single one as a kid, which was not a mean feat being in Australia, because these are New York-based publications. So they're hard to get, but I managed to get a full set, and I loved them. And anyway, this is Forrest Ackerman, and that's who we're going to draw. This is him in later life, right? He was a collector. He was a sort of a film buff, but horror and science fiction. That's what he loved, And he was the go-to guy. He was the expert at this genre, And he didn't look like he kind of looked like, I don't know, somebody's uncle or an accountant or somebody, certainly not the publisher of a horror magazine that's so important as Famous Monsters at Filmland. So let's get into it. I've done a little thumbnail sketch of what I'd like to do with his face. So I'm kind of, pulling it out almost like a peanut shape here. So there's a bit of volume at the top and a bit of a twist happening here, so it's got a little bit of motion, a bit of movement happening, and it looks like it's a flashlit photograph. It's a flashlit photograph, so generally the shadows are quite centralized, but I'm kind of giving it I'm favoring the light coming in from the top left, which means that the shadows will fall on the top left, so the shadows will fall on the bottom right, from this direction. And you also get a chance to create a what do you call it? The umbra and the penumbra, which is this. They're astronomical terms reflecting the way the sun hits a moon or a satellite or a planet, and creates this shadow area, right? And then on the other side, then the moon or something creates a light that lightens the shadow area from the other direction. Okay, so an umbra and a penumbra. It just tells you about the nature of the lighting. Also of note, we're going to concentrate our efforts into this area called the T-zone. I like to call it T-zone. Let's get a pen here. So this area here, right, is the T-zone. Learn to spell. That would be a good idea. Always focus your efforts on that. It's also called the mask, for those that are paying attention. At my horrible spelling, I can't think, talk, and write at the same time. So that's what we're going to be doing. So we'll talk more about the drawing process as we go. I've sketched the thumbnail, taken the sketch of the thumbnail. I like this sort of, shape thing that we're doing. I like the little monster's hand. Everything's working all right. Seems to be quite stable as a composition. And I've managed to sketch it up very quickly on the toned paper. And we're going to hit it with some brown pencils. And there's a tiny brown pencil in there. Look at that. So you can't hold little pencils when they get to this size. But Hey, $3 each, these pencils, so you want to make the lead last as long as possible. So we use these handles, these extenders that make it a little bit easier. You can get a grip on it. And I've got a couple of them. We're using a black pencil, brown pencil, and a white pencil. And we're going to try to experiment. We're going to mix it up. This is a Prismacolor. We've also got an Albrecht Dürer, which is a Faber-Castell. We'll see how soft that is. And we might get some help with some Poscas and ink pens and things for white and black as we go, to try to build up a sculptural drawing, right? A three-dimensional feeling for the drawing itself. Okay, so let's get into the T-zone. Let's start to push the pencil around and find our story. What do we mean by story? We're thinking actually of creating a narrative that when you look at faces, they all have like creases and wrinkles and things like that. And each one of these landforms, do you like that? It's a sort of a geological thing. The face is a map. The face is a map. And we're finding our way. We're finding the way home. Indeed. And that's what we're doing. We're finding our way home. We're finding our feet. We're finding our relative narrative, the story, the narrative component of the drawing. So the drawing tells us many things. At first glance, you might think, well, it's telling the story of the likeness. Is that the only story? No. The other story is the details that you're actually focusing on to explain the nature of things, of the character, who it is. I love these little curly mustache hairs. They're very cool to draw. Oh man, the idea of a pencil being able to draw something as simple and eloquent as hair and fur. If you're doing a cat or a lion or something, this is made for it. Pencils are it. That's it. This like a marriage, made in heaven. Fur and pencils. Woohoo! Wow. Cool stuff. Try it. Don't take my word for it. Pick up a pencil and draw some hair or draw a fur. A lion, a leopard. Wouldn't that be great? Draw that. It's fun. Have fun with these things. Now, he's got very thick glasses, so there's a little bit of difference between, which is kind of fun. The difference between the face and what the eye, or the face behind the eyeglasses, because of the lens distortion. That's kind of fun to play with. We can have fun with that. So kind of the face sort of changes, in the drawing itself. Little things. Don't go overboard with details of glasses and things, because they can, we don't have all day. But certainly, think about them. Think about them. Light and shade. Concentrate on light and shade as you go. What else is there to think about? The shapes themselves. So caricature is a process. If you think of it as a process of play, it's a process of playing games. Right? You're taking a pencil and you're creating a narrative, a story. So you're analysing the shapes of the forms that you're finding, and creating a new dialogue. Isn't that beautiful? Didn't I explain that beautifully? A new dialogue. Yeah, a dialogue. The tongue, the lingua franca, the dialogue of the pencil. The dialogue of the pencil. How about that? That's fantastic. So let's all delve into the dialogue of the pencil. I wonder what it would sound like. So I don't know why it would have. It sounds to me it would have a Hungarian accent or something. The pencils are made. Where are the pencils? I think they're made in Germany, perhaps, or some pencils are. There's factories all over Europe for pencils. The idea of drawing with a brown pencil comes from the Renaissance and also the the neoclassical period, Napoleon. So there was some good things that came out of the Napoleonic era, Napoleonic War. Not many good things came out of it. Of course, it was very violent and disruptive. But there's some good things came out of it. There was standardization and like an appeal to because after the Rococo period, which had a lot of girls on swings and things, it did. So there was a resurgence, an interest perhaps on classical art, and Ingres and Jean-Louis David, and a few other people that I can't really remember at the moment. They, one thing I just forgot. I'm doing these. I'm doing this thing with the eyes. I just don't want to forget. I was getting carried away with the reflections and the glasses and things. So let's bring that back. Get rid of that. You won't get all of the brown out, but some of it you'll get. So I'll explain as I go. There's a thing that I'm doing. I want to try to get this sort of tiny weeny eyes, like Barney Rubble style eyes. You know how Barney Rubble's got these little dots, and who else? Wilma has these dots. Betty and Fred Flintstone have round, normal shaped eyes. Maybe we can even make them tinier, perhaps. I'm looking at irrelevant proportions between some nice shapes going on with the eyes here. So relative proportions between the elements that in the mask zone, so-called mask zone, this T zone, the relationships between the eyes and the I should make that a highlight, a reflected highlight. The eyes, the nose, and the mouth. Right? So they all have a relationship. They talk to one another. Again, getting back to this dialogue concept of all of these. I'm going to have to open up some of this, get rid of some of this brown so that I can not cover up too much of the paper, because I quite like that. I put the shadow of the glasses in there. That's fine. I'm not getting a lot of. Okay, all right, I'll try and build up the structure around the eye with these beautiful folds of skin. So he's also got bifocals. I wonder if that's worth considering as an important aspect of the drawing. Don't know. Don't know yet. We'll find our way. Don't worry. So what I want to do is try to get these little tiny eyes, little dot eyes, almost dots, but not quite, into the drawing, because I think that would be fun. That's it. That's all. That's the only reason. I'm entertaining myself here. That's what I'm doing. I'm not making, with this proportional changes of changing proportions and things on the fly, I'm making decisions as to, the relative sizes of the glass lenses themselves. So I may break with tradition, perhaps, and have them different. Have this one smaller than that one. Yeah. So what? It's all trying to find a rhythm. Yeah. I'll tell you what a rhythm is. Okay. So if you do this, yeah, you've got things to draw within that rhythm, within that gesture, that shape. Okay. So these might be peas in a pod. These might be eyeballs or something, right? But because you've established a curve rhythm, it may interfere with perspective, because usually perspective is done like this, right? But this might be preferable. This might be more fun to explore that idea, to try to go with the rhythm and flow of a drawing rather than perspectively correct. Sometimes perspective is not a law, it's a observation. And you can change your observation. You can observe something different or override your observation, because it's all relative. It's all to do with you. It's all to do with you and how you want to perceive this process itself. There's quite a thick lens happening in his eye, which means that the lens itself, the shape of the lens, has an offset inside the frame. So that's worth noting and considering in the drawing. Not overdo it, don't do double lines or anything like that, but just maybe allude to it partially in the process itself. That's wrong. That should work. There's some lovely little tiny spider lines. Spider lines? Web lines is what I meant. Webbish. Web kind of lines. Spider lines. These are like some shadows, obviously, inside the eye area that come in from the shadow of the frame as the lights are formed, forming shadows. So there's a cast shadow as well. So some things to think about. Lots of things to think about. Let's try to build these structures. Oh, I've brought in the ear over there, so that's good. We'll end that there. We can't show the back of the frame over there because we've obviously exaggerated the glasses. Some lovely spider lines. I love these little spider lines. They're fun. So tiny wrinkles around the face. Getting back to the. Oh, let's go. Where do we go from here? Okay, let's go over here. We'll do that. That's fun. See how I'm offsetting this lens? It's funny. Now we're getting to the area where the muscles start to pull large areas of flesh with the chin and the cheeks. It's where these beautiful dimples form, right? Which indicate a propensity to smile a lot. This is a face that's telling me this guy is a smiling fiend. He loves to smile. Oh boy, does he love to smile. And any chance he gets, you can tell him there's such clean, well-defined lines in the smile, right? And boy, does he show that well. Really beautiful to see this. It's a clean read. It's a clean sort of a beautiful gesture of shape and form, which come from movement. Yeah, comes from, you don't think the face moves so much? No, it moves, and the movements are recorded in the flesh. So all of these things are formed by thoughts that go through his head. You know, like you'll think of it, like if you think of a joke, right? You unconsciously smile if you like that joke. It's something you do. You can't help it. You know, and people like me can look at these lines and expressions, micro expressions sometimes, tiny little expressions. You know, we look at them and what are we doing here? We're lost. Let's find ourselves. That's all right. That's good. That's good. I don't mind that. That's a good shape of the chin. So I was saying that we look at these micro expressions and find their relevance. So what does it mean? What story does it tell us? These expressions, these lines. They tell us a lot of things about the person, that they have a propensity to smile a lot, right? Otherwise the lines wouldn't be there. It's like, the Grand Canyon's formed by water. How do we know? How do we know it's formed by water? Because it's the typical signs of water. And in fact, you can't see any shovel marks. So it's formed by water, by erosion over millions of years. And that's the thing that's happening here with this face. You can see the effects of smiling over years and years and years. You can see how it's pulled and pushed forms over his face to create this unique expression of thoughts and feelings. Remember, the feelings themselves have thoughts, so it's really a thinking person's. It's a thinking process. Some great loose, what do you call these, temple hairs and things? The temple hairs, the temple. It's the temple of hairs. The temple of hairs. Indiana Jones and the Temple of Hairs. Hairs around the temple. That's what I'm talking about. Yep, some of these shapes. Very, is a process you use a lot. Oftentimes, you will use symbols like shortcuts, symbolic shortcuts, cartoons, if you will, form of symbolic, of creating symbols that are easily read. Symbols that entertain you, that are fun to create, Those are things. There's no rhyme or reason for it. It's just something that you feel that you would like to explore in this process. There's quite a lot of shadows, beautiful opportunities for it. I might actually put this, the handle of the glasses back into the fray. Might do that. That'll be good. Okay, so where are we? We're getting to the. We're doing some more hair, and we're doing some ears. That'll do. That's good. That's fine. That'll do me. That's good. It's good. So, just, feel your way through the face as you go. It's a good way to sort of create your own story, your own resonance, because it's up to you how you feel. I forgot his eyebrow. See how I just forgot. I could have just walked away and left it, and you'd have one eyebrow. You'd have one eyebrow, and no caterpillar on the other side to have any conversation or keep that caterpillar company. Okay, there's a raised eyebrow on this side. Maybe imperceptible to some, but is definitely there for me. I can see it. So I'm going to raise it even more. Raising the stakes here, folks. Raising the stakes. There you go, like that. Let's try to get the rest of the hair line in here. I'm looking at the shape of the hairs, the direction of the hairs, and responding appropriately with the right, which I feel is the right response. The number of lines and strokes and direction of the lines. Right? So, yeah, that'll do. I can get some stuff in there. Now, hairs are very interesting, aren't they? Because it's not sort of, if you look at it, right, it's not sort of a random, it's not sort of an even stroke like that. It has variation. So it has bunches, like ribbons, and they have slight variations in directions, so that creates a more realistic feel. Whether or not it's in the picture, he may have a perfectly combed hair, but I feel that it needs some values reflecting movement. And you look for rhythms and movements within within the face itself overall. Okay, so far so good, eh? Is the likeness there? Yeah, it is kind of, but I'm enjoying the process enormously because there's a lot of variation in here. Really quite entertained by these shapes that I'm finding in the face itself. And as I go, I'm thinking about what does it mean to have laugh lines so prominent like this, smile lines and deep dimples and things like that. Well, he's actually in the business of, I wish I was in this business of looking at horror films. And what's so bad about that? That was a great job. My goodness. Fancy doing that for a living. That would be ideal, wouldn't it? That would be fantastic. I haven't got any reference for the hand. I'm just doing a quick sort of... This is where drawing a lot of hands come handy, right? And also the fact that I'm turning it into a cartoon version. So there's a little bit of anatomy, but most of it is made up as I go, based on some cartoon concepts, and those are things that you pick up as you go, a little bit of Gossamer from the Bugs Bunny show. Evil Dead, whatever. It's just really to entertain myself. That's all it is. I can't really explain that enough. It's which side did this knobble go from the wrist? I think it's on the outside. Yeah. Just leave it there. Put some tendons in here, and they have a randomness too. So I'm just going to... the hand's interesting in structure. The hands are like this. So there's an unevenness to the length of fingers and a position, but it's basically, you can break it down to a simple shape. So the whole shape, his head is a simple shape, a peanut. Are you telling me you can't draw a peanut? Oh, you can. Well, if you can draw a peanut, guess what? You can draw Forrest J Ackerman. Everything, hands, all of this stuff. Think of in terms of simple shapes, and look at the direction of things, hairs and stuff in real life. Everything has a rhythm, has a purpose, and you can find that rhythm and purpose in the drawing process because we're very astute, right? We look at things very critically, and sometimes too much. We criticize our own work, right? So you sort of defeat yourself before you even have a chance to continue. Let's try and get this parallel at the top as much as we can, because I don't want to draw lines through his head. So I'm keeping that there. Maybe that one there, that'll do. And then maybe we'll go through down here. Does that look parallel? Can't really judge. Oh, that's silly. So we'll do that. See how that goes. Right. Almost. No cigar there. Getting a bit smudgy. What's going on? Okay, so blah, 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 blah. There you go. And I may as well have a look at the bottom. Kind of maybe works. We'll have a look at that. Well, messed up that one. Doesn't matter. When we do we'll fix it up later. I don't care. It doesn't matter. The brown pencil just adds more color. When we put in the white and the black, it'll become less obvious that there are pencil lines that shouldn't, around the place. It shouldn't be there. That'll be my position for the signature. All right, so let's try and why don't we muck around with the white for a second over here. Let's put this in because that seems to be quite a favorite area for white. There's a lot of reflections reflecting the camera lights over there. A bit of sparkle. Mr. Sheen over here. Bit of beautiful textures coming in the nose area here. Some lightening effects which create a contrast. Some part of the skin is lighter. There's a highlight in the eyes, which we're going to build up a little bit better with the pen later on in a sec. I just want to have a little bit of a handle on these contrasts, yeah? So some of the contrasts. We're going to create a side light accent on this side accent. It's not in the photograph, but I want it in there because it gives the figure more of a three-dimensional look. So there's a lot of fine lines on this on these glasses of highlights. I don't want to put them all in. I just want to put some in. We're going to swap pencils. Actually, use a softer pencil. But before we do that, let's try to help this situation. Where's the white? I had it here. There should be a thin white. Doesn't matter, we'll use this. Shake it up. Yeah, there you go. That'll do. Put some highlight over there. Reflection over there. And we'll come in here and put the lights reflected inside the glasses on his actual eyes themselves. And picking up pigment. So what am I doing? I'm putting in some of the lightest areas that I can detect here to give it, I want to know where the lightest spots are. So then I'll be able to favor them and leave them and, build up on them, build up on the sculptural quality of the pencil. And you say, what? What do you mean sculptural quality? I'm alluding to a three-dimensional constructed figure, three-dimensional form, okay? That's what I'm alluding to. I'm pretending that this is not a drawing. I'm pretending that it's like a sculpture, right? And as such, it has properties that catch light, and that's what I'm putting in here. Sweet. Here we go. All right, so now we're going to go in and enhance some of the black, hopefully not inappropriately. So we're looking at the contrasting zones of tone. Again, I can't stress it enough. You have to act appropriate here. You can't just arbitrarily outline things because, there's the eye, we'll do an outline. No. You've established a hierarchy of colour, of tone, between using the beauty of the grey paper, which meets you halfway tonally. But you're establishing a hierarchy of tones between light and dark. And you want to keep that hierarchy without artificially spoiling the contrasting relationships by outlining things, because that changes the structure a lot. That changes the emphasis. And I'll explain to you a little bit, because the outlining contours, and any large contours like the nose or the glasses or something, you can outline thicker, and the pencil's going to be quite a friendly device for that process, because you just go, as you can see here, go over the line a little bit more, and it's a little bit thicker, right? Not as elegant, perhaps, as a pen or a brush. You might use that to enhance over the top of this, but we don't have time to do the whole thing in brush. It's just not feasible at the moment. So, establishing lines. Lines are contrasting. So the thickness of the line indicates many things. It indicates smoothness, roundness, volume. It also indicates separation between the different surfaces. So you've got the surface of the glasses, and then you've got the surfaces of the skin under, around it. So these are important things to factor in on how you respond to them. I'm just see that gap there. That's the thickness of the lens. So I'm not coming in too far. I want to keep that lens effect, bottom of a Coke bottle feeling, a distorted lens effect. I quite like that. I'm going to keep that. I think that's an important aspect. It's interesting, and it's funny. That lens effect that makes the eyes smaller. It's a funny concept. How's his hair going at the top? Okay, so it's a lot less pronounced than I've drawn it, so I won't go any further with outlining. See, don't outline things if you don't have to. It may not be appropriate to do that. So always refer back to the reference and see how appropriate it is, that the response that you're about to make. Don't just make it before you think about it. Think about it twice, 3 times if you have to, So, Famous Monsters of Filmland was something that I absolutely adored. The conversations, it was the first time in my life I'd ever seen adults talking about kid stuff, and horror films, Texas Chainsaw Massacre notwithstanding. Horror films, not splatter films. I never really cottoned onto splatter films. I think it's a lot of tension build up for no reason. When the monster is a serial killer or something that's sort of pedestrian and normal, it's kind of, well, that's not interesting. It's scary, yes, but it's not the same as a well, imaginative horror film. Most horror films, of course, are not scary. You get a few like Exorcist or Mama or something. If you want to be scared, watch Mama and then walk up a dark staircase. Guillermo del Toro. Yeah, very cool. Very cool. Thanks, Guillermo. You scared me. First time since 1974. So being scared is something that kids love. They love the boo, because it's a release. It's a build up of tension, and then there's a release. And that's comedy horror. That's why comedy horror as a genre works so well, like Evil Dead. It's the horror and the comedy mixed. It's something to do with the timing. There's a shadow of the apocalypse. No, a shadow of the lens, the lens, the frames. Learn English. English number 1. yeah, horror films is something that I loved and grew up with, and it's sort of, I couldn't get enough of them. And the magazine really focused my attention and gave me a beautiful education. You might think, hey, what an education in horror films, Paul, man. Why do you want to do an education in horror films? Hey, it's my education. So, yeah, I had an education in horror films. I learned all about, did you know one of the first horror films was Edison's Frankenstein? Did you know that? No, you didn't know that. Okay, well, there you go, see? I had, the Gifford book on horror films, and I just loved I loved the imagination. I loved the art that went into creating it. I mean, if you look at the, Willis O'Brien's King Kong, it's a perfect example of how you could get away with cheesy, cheap effects, and just have people respond to it with love and passion. It was like King Kong. It was 1933. Dracula, Frankenstein, and then the Mummy, and that. It was like, this is a journey. This is a universe that they created. A universe, a whole universe. Universal. There you go. Created a universe. That's a pun. That's kind of true. And they're still at it today. They're trying to reinvent the Mummy. They're trying to reinvent things. For some reason, they don't. They haven't gone after the creature. So, from the Black Lagoon, which is another. It's a favourite. I think they're really aware that if you don't get it right, people are going to think you're a jerk for touching their childhood memory. It's like, okay, we can do, there's so many variations of Frankenstein's creature and, Dracula and stuff like that. But the creature from the Black Lagoon, whoa, hang on a second, Charlie boy. Hang on a second there. Before you start mucking around with something that ain't broke, let's make sure we got something there that works. And of course they haven't. They've never had. So they can't easily, they can't easily redo the creature, because it's sort of like, it's so iconic as it is. And in a way, because that iconic flavour. The fact is, you know what? They look at Universal, looks at all the films that other people do, and they say, well, that sucked. Well, we're not doing that. So let's leave the creature. Let's not do the creature, because every studio that tries to do a creature from the Black Lagoon type of thing, they always suck. And I think that gets to them. That's sort of like, well, phew, dodged the bullet there, folks. Let's make sure we don't do that. We don't make a new creature and have everybody say, that sucks. Why would you do that? That's horrible. So the covers. I bought there were other magazines at the time. There's the Monster Times, which was great. It was a newspaper about monsters, the Monster Times. How about that? Same sort of thing, movie monsters, sometimes TV monsters. Very they mixed it up with sci-fi and art, like fantasy paintings and things like that. So it was kind of like a comic convention-y type of thingy, of a magazine, newspaper. It was interesting from that point of view. But Famous Monsters was the thing, and part of that was Forrest J Ackerman's helming this project, because here's a man that really loved this genre, and for Universal to go to him, outside, he was an outside of the Universal process, to advise them on the monsters. It's really a testament to their recognition of his love of what they did. So he's a very influential character in those circles. I'm going to come back in with the white pencil in a sec with this, but just want to try to get my handle on this. These side levers. So he's a very cool magazine, interviews and articles about films. And the thing that struck me, the thing that really excited me was, I thought I'd seen it all. I thought I'd seen all of the horror films that there. Oh, well, that's it. I didn't know nothing else. I know where that's from. But you couldn't do that with Famous Monsters, because they had stuff nobody had seen. And I don't know how they did that. It was like really extraordinary. What do you call that? An expose or something? A scoop? Really incredible scoop. Concept about things that no one's seen before, and would favour, like, all things would be within their scope, like really silly Z-grade horror films sometimes, because the creative process is like, well, that's a fantastic, horrible film, beautiful mask, wow. So this is the thing with that, the love of the process, of the art of creating the horror film. This is what the magazine focused on. It highlighted. And it was really exemplified by the covers and the back page, or the inside front cover, the inside back page had posters. So pin-ups of monsters, your famous monsters, but done by really influential illustrators, top of their game. Basil Gogos, still alive and basking in the glory of his, a couple thousand paintings that he did. And these are paintings too. So, they were interesting as art. And these guys had as I said, they were illustrators, top of the game. So you could see their work, on book covers, paperback book covers, or board games, or, all of these different areas, commercial art, occasionally, and art exhibitions they would have. So, it was a lot of stuff that, because he created this dialogue and this passion, his passion created a dialogue, a language, a dialogue of horror films, his passion. And it was infectious. It was like, no one had ever said this before. No one had ever talked about this genre in quite this way. and certainly not in a a very visible format like a magazine. So it was like really exciting to see the possibilities. Whenever there was a film that came out, that had possibilities, it would be featured in a magazine. If it was a horror film, it could be, or sci-fi film, Back in the olden days, of course, there wasn't that clear delineation between sci-fi and horror. What's sci-fi? How do you describe sci-fi? Why is a sci-fi different to horror? You could probably do that with books, with paperbacks, because they have their own section, didn't they? But more difficult, I think, for the visual medium, because really a good horror film, a good sci-fi film, has elements of horror. Look at Alien. If it didn't have horror, it wouldn't be that interesting a story. So it has to be so scary. And where do you draw the line with horror? Is Psycho a horror film, or is that just a thriller film? Is Texas Chainsaw Massacre a horror film, or is that just a drama, like a thriller or something, a splatter film? They had to create a new genre when Tobe Hooper made Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So people drew lines in the sand. That was it. It ain't horror. That's splatter. That ain't horror. That's sci-fi. I just love the inventiveness of the story, of the narrative. These are things that shouldn't happen. Ghosts, they don't exist. And yet in the film they exist and they're scary. Whoa! And monsters. And then you have this emotional overlay, like the pathos, inferring this kind of broken humanity in monsters. Like you feel, the Wolfman is a tragedy. It's like a tragedy, So a lot of films were like that. A lot of horror films were like that. They have this multiple effect of comedy and tragedy, and because I guess it's got that level of cadence, that the different emotional effects at different levels of the film. It makes it special. It gives it a different heightened element. Okay, again, there's this thick lens effect here I'm trying to capture. We'll get into the structure. There's a lot of you have to be careful with white when you're working like this, because if you put too much, you're just colouring in. So it's just really an appropriate response. Now, what do you mean by an appropriate response? Well, if it stands out too much without creating a sculptural effect, which is what you're intending here with this white pencil, to create a three-dimensional tactile effect, right? So if it doesn't do that, then in many ways it's not working. It doesn't work for you. So don't colour in, just
highlight areas. And, it's good to sort of feel your way through it as a sculpture, almost like you're running your fingers over the forms themselves to find out how bumpy they are, how smooth they are, rough they are. And you kind of reflect that with the pencil, so to create a very continuous dialogue. I love that. The dialogue, the continuous dialogue of the pencil. The continuous dialogue. It just keeps chattering away. Yeah? We'll get to the highlights in a sec over on here. I'm just going to build this out a little bit more. So I'm nutting into the nutting. I'm nutting? I'm nutting. What are you doing? Nutting. I'm actually going into these forms, these folds. So the smaller folds around the eyes themselves, the little so-called bags and folds of skin, etc., are very interesting because they're like the macros of this large forms of dimples around his face. But they're in smaller. They're smaller in size. So, but they're still there, and it's very interesting to build them. Very interesting to build them. Folds upon folds upon folds. Good stuff. So look at the photos and the reference and keep the relevance happening. Remember, it has to be relevant. So you can change things a little bit, but try to keep it overall respectful of the forms that you're creating forms here that have a resonance, a truth to them, not realistic, but relative to each other. So if you change the proportions of something, how does that affect the overall proportions? So yeah, some great areas of contrast, especially with the shadows. Here and there, there's like it catches the light, as it goes into the shadow and then pops out and then catches the light because of the shininess of the skin. Skin when it's pulled tight, also around muscles, tends to be shiny as well. So these are things you think about as you go, as you draw. You create a sense of believability, and that's part of the level of attention to detail that you're providing here, to create a sense of truth that resonates, because it looks and feels correct. It kind of looks right. So the covers are the selling point to Famous Monsters of Filmland, and they didn't opt for the stuff that came with the film. They didn't do that. They didn't use the official poster of the film or anything like that. They had their own take, their own thing, and the illustrators that they used really knew their stuff. As far as what people wanted to see the details of the horror, the mask, the makeup, or whatever. So you need to look and analyze and reflect that. the craft of creating a horror film. All right, so let's build up some more white a little bit here and there. I think would be a good thing, handy perhaps. Just here and there. Just sort of try to act a little bit, try to be appropriate with the level of, don't colour in. So try to always resist that that idea of using the highlights to colour in. Don't colour in. It has to be an appropriate response, measured response. Okay, because everything has an effect. Like what I'm doing now, the little highlights in the eyes, right? They have a measured. It's a measured response because everything you do has an effect. You're creating more details, right? Micro details, areas of shine. He's got these white hairs that break up the shadows a little bit. So it's good to think about, But again, keep it in the context of where you are. Where am I? Just adding more shine here and there, just to create a sense of drama. Nearly there. That's nice. I kind of dig that a little bit. See if I can help that and help that. Help that. Maybe add a bit there, a bit there. Okay, all right. We'll try out this to see how far we can get with the black Posca. Because the white Posca dries quite flat. And I'm hoping that this will do the same thing, but I haven't activated the pen. And that's why I'm thinking it's going to take too long. Might have to use a brush or something else. Yep, I'm going to have to use a different thing because it doesn't want to work so quickly. I've had some success, I guess, with this chisel, this iron lac thing, but it's you'll see it anyway. It's quite glossy, which is not the ideal thing to do. Again, also worth mentioning, I suppose, is I don't want to come into the contour line, to the outline around the hairs and the face, because I've taken time to draw these pencil lines in, and I don't want to sort of obliterate them by coming up too close with the black. With the paint marker, because then it would just sort of disappear into the black. So black line would disappear into the black. So where possible, I'm going to try and keep away. So kind of giving it a cutout effect, which is kind of nice. Kind of nice to keep that. So again, cutting in, but not right up to the line. Just leave a little gap. That's what I usually do. That works quite. I can come in a little bit more, I guess. A little bit
to be careful. It's again, measured response, Measure your response. It's a lot of, this is a live recording, this is a live drawing, so anything could happen. It might catch fire. I might not get the likeness I want, At this stage, I don't really care if doesn't look enough like him, because I'm thinking about all the stuff that I got out of his magazines in my life, and I'm really, really happy. He made my life happy, made my childhood happy. I had a happy childhood because of Forrest J Ackerman. And his dream of painting, his dream of featuring, monsters in a magazine was perfect for me. I can't even remember if I ever read any of his articles, to be honest. I was just so in love with the whole visual presentation that I was so impressed by the magazine. I really was. It was such a quality magazine, even though the pages are inside photographs and black and white and things, but really the covers, oh my God. I mean, fancy even thinking about that. What would you get a brilliant illustrator like Basil Gogos to do monsters? Who thought of that idea? And yet, it's perfect. It's like a match made in heaven. He did it so well. It's like, the best covers for Mad Magazine are the painted covers. And some of the early ones are absolute works of art, beautifully painted. So when you look at these pop culture magazines or pop culture products, they're really exciting, and they resonate and they tell stories beyond their intended use. Forrest J Ackerman. Forry to a lot of people. Forry Ackerman. Very, very cool. Okay. Well, I wonder if it's worthwhile. I might I'll try this. This may not work. I'll try and I was thinking it might be worthwhile to colour in this aspect, because it is, after all, glasses. So let's see if that works. Yeah, that works all right. Okay, folks, this is Forrest J Ackerman, the editor and publisher of Famous Monsters magazine. This is, let's have a look at him. That's before, and that's after. I love it. Okay, this is Frantz Kantor, and I will see you on the flip side.